You're listening to the England pod. We're all England all the time, and we have qualified for the World Cup in the summer of 2026 in North America. We're not taking it for granted. We are buzzing. England beat Latvia by 5-0 in Riga. It's been, Dave, the culmination of another second in a row strong international break for Thomas Tuchel's England.
Yeah, it's very easy to take qualifying for the World Cup for granted. In fact, at the volley here tonight, I was chatting to one of the guys who came along and watched the game with us, and he said his first World Cup that he can remember was the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. So he can't even remember us not qualifying for Euro 2008. I can remember us not qualifying for 94, for qualifying for 98 and 2002 World Cups right at the last minute. I can remember having a playoff for Euro 2000, and I'm sure there are people listening who can remember the 70s and all that. So we shouldn't take it for granted, but we have become really, really good at qualifying. We haven't even conceded a goal in this qualifying campaign. And there have been some minor ups and downs throughout those games so far, but we've done the job, and increasingly we're doing it really well. And there are big nations, Italy probably foremost of them, who are not sailing through qualification as easily as us for this World Cup, and there could be the odd nation like that doesn't make it, falls into the playoffs, and maybe if it goes the wrong way, which it has done for Italy several times in recent memory, they don't make it. So we're there, that's great, it's a big thing for us. We and others can start even maybe half planning for the summer about where we might end up. There's loads of permutations about where we might be playing our games next summer in North America, but England have won 5-0 away from home, lots of positives again, and we're at the World Cup.
We will certainly be there. We are, as you say, half planning, and the major questions for us and a lot of England fans is, do you try and beat the system and book early and second guess it and try and nail it and maybe save some money in doing so? Or do you wait for that draw on the 5th of December? All things we're working out, but so nice to watch tonight at the volley with England pod listeners. Really nice crowd. I must say, watching England games here with good people and not reading Twitter and not worrying what everyone's saying online is a real treat and a real privilege. So make sure next month when we'll be back here for the second game, we'll be at the Serbia game at Wembley as well, and we hope to see a few of you there as well. Lots of more details to follow in terms of England pod meetups, both at the games and at the volley for the away games as well, that people can't make. The game itself, a 5-0 win where 26th minute our opener, and it was two players at the heart of it. One, John Stones getting on the ball and doing exactly what Tuchel wants his centre-backs to do if there's something on, and that is play a ball over the top. And Stones clearly, as we know, one of the best ball-playing centre-backs we've ever produced, picking out Gordon streaking down the left-hand channel. Something that Gordon does particularly well is running off the ball, unselfish running, stretching defences, running in behind. It's something that complements Harry Kane very well, as we know. And I think Gordon, he could not have proven himself more as a proper England starter than he has done in games against Wales and Latvia here, cutting inside and doing what you want your wide forwards to do, beating his man inside and then finding the far corner with an unsavable shot. Dave, Anthony Gordon, for a few different reasons, has to be our campman of this international break, the England pod's official player of the camp.
Absolutely, yeah. I think he got the goal today that perhaps his performance warranted against Wales. He was very bright against Wales, had some efforts, nearly scored, but then he scored today a fine goal, a great run in behind, a great ball from Stones. It was, the obvious sort of main positive, I would say, from that performance, because the rest of it was good. They stuck at it, they had all the ball, they kept on trying. Harry Kane scored a really nice goal towards the end of the first half and then followed it up with a penalty as well, which, if you're Latvia, you're probably a bit perturbed about that penalty award, but that's by the by. There's an own goal to add insult to injury in the second half, and then nice that Eze got a goal off the bench as well, with a nice assist from Jared Bowen after he won the ball in midfield, drove forward, slipped it through to Eze. So decent positives for England tonight. It's not a game that it's a game that there have been plenty of occasions over the years where, and in very recent memory in this qualifying campaign, where you go away from home and it's a bit sticky and you don't quite score early enough and it's all a bit. It wasn't that tonight. they all played well.
Yeah. We played fine. I mean, Kane's goal, his first, is just a reminder, as if we need one, that to put on my sort of cliche hat, do we take Harry Kane for granted and what he does for England and the fact that he's so unassuming in doing so? Yeah, probably, and I think his first goal is a good example of that. The ability to finish like that with your weaker foot, with power into the corner, another unsavable shot, is just astounding, and of course we should be very grateful to have him. I loved his penalty as well. He did the old stutter step and stuck it in the corner. I think there's something really fun about Kane being one of few people I can think of who takes a lot of penalties and basically mixes up whether he just runs full at the ball and strikes it, or whether he does that sort of stutter pause in his run-up. I can't imagine how much harder that makes it for goalkeepers, having that psychological question in your head as to whether he's going to stop or not. Kane is an absurd penalty taker, and yes, he has missed one very high-profile penalty for England, but we, again, should be very fortunate to have him, and it's nice to see him not too impacted by the injury that he'd picked up previously, with Watkins having gone home after volleying the post at Wembley.
Harry Kane, best striker in the world right now, I think, to be fair. And he I think it was Jack Pitbrook who asked him the other day, are you in your best form now since you left Tottenham? And Harry Kane answered in the affirmative, and I think we saw that again tonight, just confident. Could have easily scored a couple more tonight as well. But you know what also Harry Kane is the best at as well? At picking up ludicrous stats. The how does that sound stat. There were two more tonight. So I saw both of these on the BBC. And one was Harry Kane now holds the record for scoring, for the England player that scored 2 or more goals in the most games. 13 times he scored 2 or more goals, taking that record from Nat Lofthouse. And the other one is that he is now the player who has overtaken Gary Lineker in scoring the most goals for England whilst playing for a non-English club. How does that sound, Harry?
It sounds good to me. I think I'm more interested in the first one than the second one, I think. Partly because Nat Lofthouse, I was not familiar with your game. 12 braces for England, or more. Maybe we need to do a retrospective on Nat Lofthouse. If anyone is a Nat Lofthouse expert, please message us.
There will be a few.
Absolutely no doubt about that. Comedy own goal, let's be honest, for our fourth. And as Dave mentioned, Bowen winning the ball back in midfield, driving forward, slipping in Eza, and him cutting in and finishing. There was a moment with 20 minutes to go after most of the subs had come on where I thought the game was going to lull and just finish without anything happening, and then you realise that with the way that Tuchel has set out his stall in terms of the competition for starts in this team, you realise that for Bowen and for Eza, you have to make the most of any opportunities that you have, and you have to not sulk about coming off the bench, but remember that there are people who aren't even in this squad who people would like to see given a go, and so to actually have the opportunity to play for 20 minutes needs to be taken. And I think, in fairness, outside of the goal, which they were both a part of, Bowen and Saka didn't do anything sensational, they didn't do anything terrible either, but I think we're in a really interesting spot, Dave, after 8 games under Tuchel. Clearly the last 4 games and the last 2 international camps have been hugely positive and have calmed a lot of the fears from a footballing point of view as to how England could possibly look under Tuchel and the approach that he is taking. His decision to stick with the squad that did so well last month, particularly away in Serbia, could not have been more justified with the performances that we've seen. It obviously leads to some very interesting questions, given that the next international break is only a few weeks ago, a few weeks away again. It leaves some really interesting questions on that front. But there's something I think great and should be celebrated about a manager making an incredibly strong decision, explaining it pretty well, and then the players backing him up as they have done here. We're a lot happier than we were 4 games ago, put it that way.
For sure. And he has set something of a precedent now. He decided to stick with the same squad. There was a lot of talk about Bellingham not being in there, a little bit less talk about Foden and Grealish not being in there, but it was still noted. So all eyes on that announcement on a Friday in November. if Bellingham isn't in that squad next time, there will be even more questions and it will be an even bigger story. If Foden's not in there, if Grealish isn't in there, it will be interesting. Does he stick again with this bunch? I think there are a couple things at play now. You can say to somebody like Morgan Gibbs-White and Ruben Loftus-Cheek, well, look, I did stick with you. Loftus-Cheek and Gibbs-White both got minutes at Wembley last week. You can say, look, you're not out of it yet, but I want, this time you are going to sit this one out, and maybe you come back in March, but we need to get some more players in the squad. So you could bring Bellingham and Foden maybe in for those two. You could bring a Wharton in for, in that equation as well. You could also say that, well, we're qualified now, so it gives him a bit more license to potentially experiment or, mix things up a little bit. But on the flip side, I don't think it would surprise me if Tuchel decided to stick to his guns and say, no, these are my guys, we're playing well. They've just won, just scored 8 goals in 2 games and haven't conceded again. Like, we move forward, we build the group, and it's up to the other players to work hard to be ready for opportunities if they fall. So I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens in November, because we've had another good week.
Yeah, we have. I think it's a good time to just basically go through the 11 and try and nail down the extent to which we think certain positions are either more or less nailed down or up for grabs. I think Pickford is completely nailed on. I think that's pretty obvious. I think one of the things we've learned in this camp is that John Stones will start for England when John Stones is fit. So we can put him and Harry Kane and Jordan Pickford in that bracket, and probably Declan Rice as well.
And I think Jordan Henderson as well. Now,
I'm talking about starting 11 here.
Okay.
I'm talking about starting 11 here.
Okay. Well,
so
okay, he's not in that conversation, but Tuchel has on occasion mentioned the leaders and like the senior players, and Henderson's always in that group when he mentions them. So I think Henderson isn't going anywhere in terms of the squad.
Yep. I think that's absolutely fair. So if we think that Stones is basically a lock, and the fact that he started both games, I think shows that. We've been used in the last 6 months to watching 2 of Gahey, Konza and Dan Burn rotated for England, and then Stones was available for an international camp and started both games. And Tuchel, when I asked him about Stones in that press conference before the September break, basically could not have showed his love for John Stones anymore. So Stones is in, which raises a really interesting question about who might be his centre-back partner, all being well and Stones being fit, because Konza and Gahey have been basically impeccable for England for as long as I can remember now.
Great tackle from Konza tonight when he had one of the rare times that the Latvia got in.
Is it significant that Konza got the start over Gahey tonight? Yeah, I think it is. I wasn't surprised that Lewis Skelly came in to play on the left side of the defence. On paper, clearly in practice, this was a game where we had most of the ball in the opposition half, so he was able to come inside, stay outside and do the things that Lewis Skelly does quite well. But Konza, having played right back against Wales, came inside and Gahey dropped out.
Yeah, but I think you could look at it and say, well, Konza started 2 matches and he played well against Wales at right back. He didn't look awkward. He didn't look like he was a makeshift right back, really. He looked comfortable. But I think you sort of take out the right back thing for a second, and it's Stones, and I've given the other 2 a game each.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Maybe that is clearly still in the balance, whatever, but I think that's a pretty good point. I think at right back, look, I think Reece James is England's starting right back in Tuchel's mind. I obviously can't prove that until James is back fit. Spence did a good job at left back against Wales and a decent job at right back tonight, and has certainly done himself no harm whatsoever. But for me, James is England's starting right back as I see it, and the left back is clearly up for grabs with Lewis Skelly playing here. Tuchel being honest about the fact that if Lewis Skelly isn't playing for Arsenal, he can probably only last so long in this team, in the squad even. We got Livramento to come back from injury. We got Lewis Hall coming on strong. The left-back spot is absolutely up for grabs. In midfield, right now, sitting here, it feels like Anderson and Rice. And, clearly that's quite a new thing because Anderson's only got a few caps under his belt. But the way that he's played, the fact that Tuchel has started them both together in order to develop that relationship, the fact that they seem to complement each other very well, as discussed, the fact that he clearly loves Jordan Henderson, but is also mainly for his leadership capacity rather than him thinking he's a proper nailed-on starter. Feels like Anderson and Rice right now, pretty much locked in.
It just looks good. It just feels good. They complement each other well. Anderson's had another 2 good performances for England, and all of a sudden, as you say, he feels like a complete lock. It feels hard for Adam Wharton to get in to the starting 11 ahead of those two. Certainly not Rice. Anderson's the spot, and he at the moment has got a firm grip on it. Maybe Wharton comes in the next camp or in March, and just maybe the system could be tweaked slightly to get him in there, and he gives you something a bit different on the ball, obviously. But yeah, Rice and Anderson are in there. Kane, as we said, is in there. And then the interesting positions are the 2 wide forwards and the number 10.
Yeah, so Rodgers was excellent against Wales, notably so. Probably England's man of the match. I would say he was, if I'm being honest, England's quietest player tonight, and made very little impact on the game, and was one of the ones subbed off on the hour mark. That is obviously going to be interesting in the wider conversation where you bring Jude Bellingham into the conversation. When it comes to Bellingham, there's been consistent sort of media coverage of Bellingham's omission during this camp. For what it's worth, I am, and possibly naively, more than happy to take Tuchel at his word, and I think there are 2 pretty clear and understandable reasons why Bellingham wasn't in this squad. And the first one is that Tuchel made a point of keeping the squad the same as the September squad in order to reward those who performed so well. An exceptional camp. What else has he got to go off than an exceptional camp? And then the secondary aspect of Bellingham returning from a shoulder surgery, only having started 1 game for Real Madrid since returning from that, and by all reports not looking quite his best, and therefore having a bit of time off, probably not the worst thing in the world. For me, it's all right to stop at that point and go like, yeah, all right, fair enough. I've noticed that is not necessarily the approach of other media outlets. It's something that frustrates me personally, because I have my own views on what I think is fair and kind of positive coverage of the England national team. I am convinced that we will see Bellingham in the squad in November, and if we see Bellingham in the squad in November, I think that much of the stuff that has been chatted about and written about in the last 2 weeks becomes like really stupid in hindsight, and I'm looking forward to seeing whether that is the case or not. But I truly don't believe that Tuchel has left him out as some sort of statement against Bellingham being a negative impact on and off the pitch, on or off the pitch. I truly don't believe that, and I might be proven spectacularly wrong if he's omitted from the next squad.
What would be interesting is if and when Bellingham next gets named in an England squad, is if he is one of the players to appear at a press conference or in one of the briefings, or one of the chats with various sections of the media. He doesn't do much. That's been noted by a lot of the journalists. There is a feeling perhaps that he doesn't really like doing that. But at some point, I think it would be beneficial to him, to Tuchel, to England, to the FA, if he was to answer some questions and kind of, just tell us, you're happy with everything? And, you'd imagine he will say yes, unless there really was a problem, then we won't hear from him. So I think, that'd be interesting to see if he does do anything public-facing at all between now and the World Cup. But he'll come back in, I'm sure. And then it's like Foden and Grealish, they are the sort of lesser cases a little bit, but, I still could see, as I said at the start, I could see Loftus-Cheek, Gibbs-White, going out, and Foden and Bellingham are the 2 that come in nominally for them. But to look at the wide areas quickly, like Gordon seems to really have advanced his case as being like England's first choice option on the left side. Rashford is still in the squad, came on today, came on at Wembley. Tuchel clearly likes him, but by no means is he a lock for the first 11, and still I don't think a guaranteed member of the squad next summer, unless he has to really, really keep at it. On the right hand side, Madueke is obviously injured for this camp, but I think he's still very much in the reckoning to start for England if he's playing well and he's in form, because Tuchel clearly likes him. Saka, you would think, would have the lock on the right wing position, but his unfortunate injury, ups and downs in the last year or so have sort of meant that he hasn't played as much for England as you would have thought. But all being well, probably does start.
Yeah, I think so. I think right now with Saka, in my head, it's like a 85-15 situation where it's almost impossible to imagine Madueke, if they were both fit, playing significant minutes over Saka at Arsenal, and therefore very difficult to accept that he would play significant minutes over Saka with England. Of course, Madueke is an option on the left-hand side as well. We think that Tuchel really likes him, but Gordon has been sensational. We'll bring it back to our Campman Award for Gordon. He did the press before the first game. He's an absolute joy in terms of the press and the press conferences. And there's a part of me that almost wishes I didn't have any views on players based on what they're like in the press, because there's a part of me that would rather just consider their footballing ability and the way they contribute to the team on that front, because I sometimes think what people are like in the press and any perceived idea that we have from the outside about team spirit and people's contributions to that can be sometimes wasted air, to be honest, or just not that relevant, or maybe not as relevant as we think. But having said all that, I love Anthony Gordon. Every time he opens his mouth, I find he says something interesting, original, not cliched, and it was incredibly notable to me that in that press conference he said, and I don't think loads of players would say this, in an England shirt, I don't feel like I've got anywhere near the level that I'd like to be able to prove. I really, really want to prove myself in an England shirt, and I need to take this opportunity to do so. He absolutely did do that. And it's another example of someone really stepping up and showing themselves to be quality in an England shirt. We know that major tournaments are a different game. We know that there's a history of England players making the shirt look heavy in international tournaments and not so much in qualifiers. So let's not get carried away. But there is loads and loads to be positive about. Sitting here at the Volley, having watched 2 games here with England Pod listeners, an aggregate score of 10-0 in 2 away World Cup qualifiers is not bad at all.
Got to keep it going, yeah. Look, big thanks to everyone who came down to watch the game with us tonight. Some familiar faces from last time, a few new faces as well. A nice group. It's a fun thing to do. As you said, it's more fun than sitting at home watching England on the sofa and scrolling Twitter and sort of half paying attention. So we'll be doing it again for the next camp. We'll be down here, I hope, for the Albania away game. We'll be at Wembley for the Serbia game. We might try and do a meet-up around that home game as well. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice to watch England with nice people.
Yeah, you can't have cans on Wembley Way, can you? Otherwise, that would be a lovely little meet-up.
I don't know. I have had cans on Wembley Way before.
Well, not legally.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening. I really hope you're enjoying the England pod. As you can tell, we are really excited about the World Cup. We enjoy doing what we're doing and talking about the England team, and we hope that you guys are enjoying it as well. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast feed, and if you could, give us a rating, 5-star review. That would make a big difference to us. If you are, and with some apologies, if you are someone that works with a brand or knows someone that does, particularly in the sponsorship team, we are intending on having a massive World Cup. We're going to be out in the States. We're going to be on the ground there. We're going to be doing some, hopefully, really, really good content around England and the World Cup in general. And we would love to find some really, really great partners for that. It's a massive, massive, massive deal for us. And we would love to chat to anyone who would like to hear more about that. So please do get in touch. Ali@NTT20 is my email address, which hopefully I won't regret giving out. Thank you for listening to the England pod. We will be continuing with our England chat every single week, and certainly looking forward to next month's World Cup qualifiers. But we already have England at the World Cup 2026. Yes. Go well.
Come on, England.